The Ozark Howler is a legendary creature rooted in the folklore of the Ozark Mountains, spanning Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and parts of Kansas. Described as a large, bear-like beast with shaggy black fur, glowing red eyes, and prominent horns, the howler is infamous for its eerie, blood-curdling howl that echoes through the forests. Sightings and reports. Sightings of the Ozark Howler date back to the early 1800s, with one of the earliest accounts involving the American frontiersman Daniel Boone, who allegedly encountered and shot the creature in Missouri. Only in Arkansas. Notable modern sightings include 2011, a sighting in Newton County, Arkansas, where an individual reported encountering the howler. 2014, a motorist in Benton County, Arkansas, nearly collided with a bear-sized gray animal with horns. 2015, photos purportedly showing the Ozark Howler near Devil's Den State Park were submitted to local news, but later deemed a hoax by the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. Red eyes in the holler. Newton County, Arkansas, November 2023. I wasn't looking for a story when I rented the cabin. I was trying to disappear. After my divorce and the slow death of my freelance photography career, I found myself drifting. Work dried up. My social circle shrank. The city began to feel like a trap. I needed out someplace without reminders, noise, or expectations. Just quiet. A friend told me about the Ozarks. Said there were old cabins you could rent cheap near the Buffalo River. I found one about 30 minutes outside Ponca. A single-room structure tucked into a holler, surrounded by forest so thick you couldn't see 10 feet past the porch at night. It didn't have much. A cot, a wood stove, a rusty sink that spat brown water for the first 10 minutes. No Wi-Fi. Self-service was a flickering ghost. Barely there. That's exactly what I wanted. The first few days passed quietly. I chopped some firewood, explored the trails, and read until the sun set. I had my camera with me and thought about hiking to Hawksbill Crag for some wide-angle landscape shots, but I never got around to it. I wasn't there to create. I just wanted to vanish for a while. But on the third night, I heard something strange. Just past midnight. A long, low cry that rose into a shriek. At first, I thought it was an elk. I'd heard their bugling before. But this was off. Not quite animal. There was a metallic edge to it, like it was echoing off something that wasn't there. I stepped out onto the porch, flashlight in hand, but the beam got swallowed by the trees. Nothing moved. Nothing responded. Just silence and that thick kind of darkness that feels like it's leaning against you. I asked a few people in town the next day. One guy at the gas station told me not to worry. It was probably a bobcat. They scream like dying women sometimes, he said, chuckling but not quite smiling. A woman at the general store just shook her head and muttered, "That holler's got something in it. Always has." I asked her what she meant, but she walked away. That night, I set up my trail cam in the clearing behind the cabin, mostly out of curiosity. I figured it was just wildlife. I wasn't scared. Not yet. The camera didn't catch much. A couple of deer, a raccoon, then one frame, just one. That made my stomach flip. There was a shape at the edge of the clearing, half hidden behind a tree. It was tall, taller than a man, and wide across the shoulders. Just a silhouette, but the eyes, they glowed red, not from the flash. From within, it didn't move in the next frames, like it had disappeared. I told myself it was a glitch, maybe a reflection. But the next night, I stayed up, not watching the woods, watching myself, trying to figure out why I suddenly felt like I shouldn't sleep, like something out there was waiting for me to close my eyes. That was the first night the power went out. The howling started again, this time much closer. It didn't rise and fall like a normal animal call. It surged, a violent, brassy roar that seemed to make the walls vibrate. It sounded angry, like it knew I was there. I grabbed my flashlight and sat by the window until sunrise. The next morning, I found something strange outside the trail of the camera. A deep groove, like something had dragged its claws through the soil. 4 long furrows, maybe 6 feet long. And that smell, musky sour like old meat and wet fur. I took a few photos with my DSLR, but they didn't capture how wrong it felt out there. The next night, I loaded my old shotgun and kept it by the bed. I'd never felt that kind of tension before, not even covering war protests in St. Louis. It wasn't fear in the usual sense. It was like being watched by something that didn't blink. Something that wanted you to know it was there. Around 2:40 a.m., the smell hit again, stronger, and with it, the silence. No crickets, no wind, nothing. I turned off the stove light and waited. At 3:07, it stepped into the clearing. The creature, thing, whatever it was, moved like a wolf with the weight of a bear. Black-furred, muscular, wide across the chest. It walked on 4 legs at first, sniffing the ground. Then it stopped, straightened, stood up. Its arms, yes, arms, were too long. Its fingers curled. Its shoulders heaved like it was breathing in deep. Then it turned its head toward me. I saw the horns, curved like a ram's, but asymmetrical, one curled longer than the other. And those eyes, they weren't just glowing. They burned, like coals with wind behind them. I raised my camera. The shutter clicked. The flash lit the trees. The howl that came next wasn't natural. It wasn't of this world. It was grief and rage and warning rolled into a sound so loud I dropped the camera and covered my ears. The glass in the window cracked. Then it was gone. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. By morning, my trail cam was missing. The camera I dropped, erased, not just corrupted. The photo was gone. Metadata stripped. It was like the image had never existed. I left that afternoon. Didn't even pack properly. Just tossed what I could into my truck and drove until I hit cell signal. I checked into a hotel in Harrison and tried to tell myself it was exhaustion, paranoia, something I had built up in my head. But something followed me home. Not the creature, but the feeling, that hum in your chest when you know you're being watched. I hear the howl sometimes, faint, under the sound of wind or sirens. My lights flicker. My phone glitches. Sometimes I see red eyes in reflections. I've read since that some believe the Ozark Howler is an omen, a death hound, a spirit that guards something ancient in the land. I don't know if that's true, but I do know this. It's real. It walks the hollers. And if you hear it scream, it already knows where you are.